Imagine a world where the very concept of empathy has vanished, not suppressed, not ignored, but fundamentally gone, as if a crucial piece of the human operating system had been deleted. In our not-so-distant future, this terrifying reality might be closer than we think. What if the constant digital bombardment, the endless scroll, and the curated realities we inhabit aren't just making us less empathetic, but are actively eroding our capacity for it? Could an entire species evolve beyond its most fundamental emotional connection, leaving a cold, hollow shell in its wake? The signs, chillingly, are already here. To truly grasp the abyss of a post-empathy world, we must first understand how deeply ingrained empathy once was. For millennia, it was the glue of human society. From communal foraging to shared grief, our ability to project ourselves into another's experience, to feel their joy or pain, formed the bedrock of cooperation, morality, and even survival. It was a biological imperative, a social contract etched into our very DNA. But then something shifted. The early 21st century marked a turning point. The digital revolution, initially hailed as a tool for global connection, began subtly, insidiously to dismantle these ancient bonds. Our interactions moved from the tangible to the theoretical, from face-to-face vulnerability to screen-filtered performance. We started talking at each other, not with each other. The intimacy of shared space was replaced by the infinite yet isolating expanse of the internet. The subtle cues of body language, the authentic crack in a voice, the spontaneous embrace, these vital nutrients for empathy began to wither. We became spectators of life rather than participants in it, observing suffering through a pixelated window, detached, distant, and increasingly uncaring. This wasn't a sudden cataclysm, but a creeping drought, subtly parching the wellsprings of human compassion, leaving us vulnerable to something far more sinister. But things took a darker turn when the algorithms began to amplify our tribalism. Social media, designed to connect, inadvertently carved us into echo chambers, reinforcing our biases and demonizing the other. Empathy requires bridging divides, understanding different perspectives. But when your feed is a constant affirmation of your own views, the other becomes less human, more caricature. We stopped seeing individuals, we saw labels, ideologies, and profiles to be dismissed or attacked. The dopamine hit of a like or a share replaced the quiet satisfaction of a meaningful connection. Performance became paramount. We curated our lives not for authentic sharing but for external validation, fostering a culture of superficiality where genuine vulnerability, the very fuel of empathy, was deemed a weakness. Then came the true accelerators, advanced AI. As chatbots grew indistinguishable from humans, as deepfakes blurred the lines of reality, our inherent trust in what we saw and heard began to erode. Why empathize with suffering if it could be faked? Why connect with someone when an AI could provide a more convenient, less demanding facsimile of companionship? The human effort required for empathy, active listening, emotional labor, vulnerability, became too high a price to pay in a world constantly optimizing for efficiency and instant gratification. We became emotionally lazy. The sheer volume of information further exacerbated the issue. Daily, we were bombarded with tragedies, injustices, and suffering from every corner of the globe. Instead of deepening our compassion, this constant exposure desensitized us. A refugee crisis became just another headline, a mass shooting another fleeting tremor in the endless news cycle. Our empathy muscles, once stretched and strengthened by finite, immediate concerns, atrophied under the weight of infinite, distant despair. We built mental walls, not out of malice, but out of sheer self-preservation, unable to process the constant deluge of human pain. We learned to scroll past, to retweet without truly feeling, to intellectualize suffering rather than internalize it. The feedback loop was complete. Less empathy led to more digital detachment, which in turn bred even less empathy, accelerating our descent into a state of profound emotional solitude. What they discovered next changed everything, the dawn of the post-empathy era. It wasn't a dystopian novel unfolding, it was a slow, agonizing slide into a cold, transactional existence. The first indicators were subtle, societal shifts dismissed as modern anxieties. Doctors struggled to convey prognoses, not because of a lack of medical knowledge, but because patients no longer displayed discernible emotional responses to devastating news. Their faces remained placid, their eyes vacant. They'd nod, process the information logically, and ask about logistics, but the fundamental human reaction of grief, fear, or even anger was conspicuously absent. Social unrest didn't cease, but its nature transformed. Protests became highly organized, almost dispassionate displays of logistical power, devoid of the fervent emotion that once fueled revolutionary movements. Vandalism occurred, not out of rage, but out of calculated disregard, like a technician testing the structural limits of a building. The family unit, once a bastion of emotional support, fractured into individual units of self-interest. Children raised without the mirroring and attunement that builds empathy interacted with their parents and siblings as if they were cohabitants in a shared space, not deeply connected individuals. The concept of love as an emotional bond began to fade, replaced by partnerships based on mutual convenience, shared interests, or even algorithmic compatibility. Art became purely analytical. Music was appreciated for its mathematical precision, painting for its technical skill, but the ability to evoke deep emotion, to stir the soul, was lost. Critics would dissect a piece for its components, but the feeling it conveyed was no longer a relevant metric because the audience simply wouldn't feel it. Morality itself became a set of cold, hard rules enforced by logic rather than compassion. When a crime occurred, the judicial system focused solely on facts, on cause and effect, without any consideration for the victim's suffering or the perpetrator's remorse. The very idea of mercy became anachronistic, an inefficient deviation from strict adherence to the law. Philanthropy, once driven by altruism, transformed into data-driven investment, funding projects with the highest measurable ROI, regardless of the emotional impact on individuals. The suffering of distant populations was acknowledged but no longer felt. It was a statistical problem to be solved, not a human tragedy to be mourned. Interpersonal communication became remarkably efficient, yet utterly devoid of warmth. Conversations were direct, concise, and purely information exchanging. Small talk, once a vital social lubricant, vanished. Greetings were functional, goodbyes immediate. The quiet comfort of simply being with someone, of sharing unspoken understanding, was a forgotten relic. The post-empathy era wasn't a sudden collapse into chaos, but a chilling descent into an orderly, efficient, and utterly heartless existence. It was the ultimate triumph of pure logic over the messy, unpredictable, yet beautiful tapestry of human emotion. A world where you could never truly hurt anyone, not because of compassion, but because they simply couldn't feel it. To this day, we may never fully understand the exact moment the tide turned irreversibly. Was it a specific technological leap, a viral social trend, or simply the cumulative weight of 1,000 tiny erosions? The post-empathy world stands as a stark monument to humanity's capacity for unintentional self-mutilation. We didn't choose to lose empathy, not consciously. We just let it slip away, one click, one scroll, one dismissive thought at a time. The echoes of what we once were, the ghost of shared laughter and collective sorrow, still linger in ancient texts, in dusty paintings, in the faint, almost imperceptible hum of our deepest, most primal desires for connection. But these are just relics, artifacts from a bygone era, understood intellectually but no longer viscerally felt. The question remains, is empathy merely a phase in our evolutionary journey, a biological tool that has outlived its utility in an increasingly complex, digitally mediated world? Or is its extinction the ultimate terrifying price for our relentless pursuit of technological advancement? If we've truly arrived in an era beyond empathy, what does it mean to be human anymore? And is there any going back, or is this cold, efficient, profoundly lonely existence our species' final chilling destination?